Kia ora koutou. Thanks again for everyone coming today and giving your time and energy to this space. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Therese Lautua. Some of you may have heard her speak as she was recently at the Priest Assembly in Rotorua, and she's flown down to be with us today. Therese is a theologian in Auckland who does research in the Pasifika area. She has both Samoan and Aotearoa heritage that she brings to her theological research. And of course, her Catholic faith is a big part of everything she does. Therese was part of the writing group for the Oceania Synod document. So they all went to Melbourne, was it, Therese? To bring together all the documents from Oceania and send them on to Rome. So Therese has been very involved with the Synod process, and it is our pleasure to welcome you here today. Awhio mai, haere mai, kia ora.
Kia ora tātou. How is everybody today? Are you feeling alive? Ready for this? Okay. Kia ora tātou. No lalumanu maile sa musu Bautasi Samoa no Airangi no Switzerland hoki o kutupuna I whānau mai au I Tāmaki Makaurau Aotearoa. Kei manurewa ahau e noho ana. He paiwai ki tua o kairangi ahau ki te kura tangata waipapa taumataro ko Therese Lautua toku ingoa. Mahalo lelei everybody, my name is Therese, as been introduced, and my ancestors come from multiple places, Samoa, Ireland and Switzerland, and I'm proudly from Manurewa in South Auckland, which is, you know, all the stereotypes associated with that. And so like Amy has said, my research at the University of Auckland, it kind of focuses on Catholic identity, Pacific cultural identity, and how this impacts mental well-being. I've got two daughters, as you can see on the screen there. So we've got Kylie, who's 2.5 years old, and also Vianney, who's named after St. John Vianney, who's 2 months old, and in the car with my husband, I don't know doing what, surviving out there, because I'm so sorry that we were very late. We're very late today. We meant to be here in the morning, but we're here now, and I'm really pleased to be with you. Okay, so one way of understanding a holistic Pacific worldview, which is really important for positionality and thinking about what synodality means, is through the Samoan term itulangi. So itulangi means side of the heavens, and it delineates a holistic perspective on our identity. So itu can be defined as how a person carries their worldview, not exclusive to their culture, their family, a religion and relationship to the homeland, language and people. And the langi incorporates aspects of the created world, the things which connect each of us as human beings, like the sun, the moon and the stars, and our natural environment. So this holistic approach of reciprocity and respect, belonging and genealogy, relationships, it's tied up in seeing Atua, our God, the land and the environment, our ancestors, languages, families, as things at which collectively strengthen family and individual well-being. And we flourish in our faith when these things are all in harmony. So while each of us, you know, we have our own unique context that we're a part of, we belong in our integrated cosmos together. The whole Catholic teaching on integrated ecology is really important in this aspect. And Pacific historian Toyo Lesulusulu Damon Sa'alesa, in his book Island Time, he talks about Aotearoa as a nation which not just exists in the Pacific Islands, but it's a part of the Pacific, and the way we think about and describe ourselves is really important. So even tangata whenua, they can relate to tangata ole moana, you know, as one might say in Samoan, people of the Pacific. So we've got connections all over this region, but we don't necessarily see ourselves that way, even though we might have had generations of our families been born here. So I guess the reason why I'm talking about positionality and sharing our kinship ties is so important is that it's really unique and important for our region here in Aotearoa, how we view synodality and relate to each other in our parishes, and making the practical outcomes that you've spoken about today in your plan a reality. All right, so, it's the spirit in which authentic conversations, talanoa that we might have, that can take place where each person is open to encountering one another. Let's hope that changes, yes. So I was going to get you to talk, but I'm looking at the time. Maybe, I won't spend too long on this, but with the person next to you, there's a proverb up there it's a Tongan proverb, Papata pe ka naelalanga, which means it may be coarse in texture, but it was woven. So with the person next to you, what does that proverb mean to you? I'll give you 2 minutes. Papata pe ka naelalanga, it may be coarse in texture, but it was woven. It's talking about the process of weaving a mat. You can talk about today as well if you'd like. Give you 1 more minute. Okay, would anybody like to share one or two thoughts? Anybody like to share? Yeah. Beautiful. So, I was just going to repeat. Yeah. So he was saying that. What's your Father Damien, right? Yes, I remember you from a few weeks ago. So he said that the mat might be coarse because it's more for everyday use, as opposed to a fine mat, which is more for gifting, like at weddings or funerals. So it's meant for its hard wearing, and it's woven well. Nice. Anything else? Beautiful. So we had here different strands of material woven together, and might not necessarily see the individual parts that make up the entire beautiful piece, but the whole piece as a whole has a purpose. And like the proverb itself, it's generally referring to life and how it might have twists and turns, but in the end, it's all kind of part of the journey. But I definitely think it's a proverb we could take, specifically for our region, about synodality, and even today, how it might have been. I'm not sure if you had convergences and divergences, but it's all part of this journey, which is what synodality is all about, right? So, the Synod. No one in my parish in Auckland knew about the Synod, not that it wasn't promoted, and we have about 2,000 people regular attending Sunday Mass in my parish in Manirewa. And myself personally participating, I was in our Auckland gathering and got to meet some people that are here in the national gathering in Wellington. And it was a huge privilege, as Amy mentioned, to be a part of the Oceania Discernment and Writing Group, which met in Melbourne in January this year with, you can see up there, Father Dennis and Anne, who are from the Archdiocese of Wellington. And so it's been really nice to see some of the members of the group in that picture be in Rome in the past month, and being friends with them, getting their inside views of, wow, we're in this part of the Vatican and we met these people today. And so today I thought I'd share some reflections, not to summarize the synthesis document that's come out of the Synod, but just some bits that I think might be relevant from a New Zealand and Pacific perspective. I think the Catholic Church in Aotearoa needs to be a bit stronger in expressing our multicultural identity and commitment to being bicultural, without it being lip service or tokenistic. So one of the first themes, the first section of that synthesis document talks about, the theme is the face of the synodal church, and it talks a lot about the Trinity. So, lots of my reflection thinking about well-being tries to draw on the relational nature of the Trinity. And each of the three persons of the Trinity are obviously in radical, equal harmony and relationship within God's self and with all created things as well. Each person in the Trinity has specific actions that they have to undertake within God's self and in the world. And there's this term called perichoresis, which talks about the mutual indwelling of the three persons of the Trinity. It's called a divine dance, which is quite beautiful when you think of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, continuously moving in dynamic and moving into the world. And because of this, mutual indwelling, there's no possibility of individualism or conflict within the Trinity, even though obviously with our human nature, that's definitely part of the journey. And this doctrine of the Trinity is not ultimately teaching us about God, but it teaches us about God's life with us. We and God, and all of us with each other. There's a Samoan Methodist theologian, his name is Reverend Upolulu Ma'avai, and he talks about the Trinity in terms of the word fa'aloalo, which generally is translated as meaning respect. But Va'ai explains that the root of this word, the etymology, is face, and which in this context can mean that the individual is the face of a community. But it also says that it's also referring to the direction of the face as well, a person's face. So, namely, face-to-face relationships require mutual respect. And so trying to think of the Trinity in this way. And so when we think about culture, God uses culture as a vehicle to express relationship with humanity. Just as the light of faith looks to the past and remembering Jesus and looks, forward to the future with his resurrection, we in our Pacific region, we can look to our past with our ancestors as a source of knowledge alongside our faith. So our ways of being, affirm the work of the Trinity. And so when we're talking about the Trinity, I feel like not enough of the people in the pews get the chance to reflect on this and what it means for practically what it means for mission and what it means for communion and participation, those big themes of the Synod. Here we go. The second thing we've got is Christian initiation, koinonia, or communion. So how do we come to communion? And again, drawing on this idea of relationality within the Trinity, there's a Fijian female theologian, Esetsa Matseviti Tulavu, and she talks about this Fijian concept of wellness, sautu. And sautu is a itauke, or indigenous Fijian concept of wellness. When individuals collaborate to achieve a goal and their own mana is enhanced by this connection. So, mana being our Pan-Pacific term, which describes an inherent force, either, at a personal or communal level, and can mean both, authority or power that one has inherited, or it might be something, a charismatic influence or ability. So your own mana is enhanced when you collectively work together. So she argues that there is only sautu when an individual and their family can flourish and be self-sustaining. And that only comes with the way that we choose to communicate and listen and show respect to one another. And so a relational God who, in the creation stories of Genesis, creates, speaks, and rests, and ensures that there's harmony within the cosmos. And she talks about how sautu starts in the womb and creating a space of love within the family where every individual is taught their genealogical history and they flourish within this knowledge. It came across, so the Oceania group we spoke, when we came to looking at the priorities, this is before the group in Rome, one of the priorities was the ecological crisis in our region. It really defines one of the key issues that we face. And I think it's quite beautiful that in many of the languages of our region, Fijian terms land vanua, then we've got whanua in Tongan, whanua in Samoan, inua in the Cook Islands, and whenua here in Aotearoa. And it's not just, like the land when we come here, but I felt because we had to stop in Christchurch on the way here. I've never been to Christchurch before, but I felt like the land was speaking. I could just feel like, man, this area has gone through so much. Yeah, I feel like I'm getting emotional, like the land is speaking. So when we talk about this ecological crisis in our region, each of us has an important part to play. But I'm not sure that it came across in the big synthesis document. So while it's important to look at our big goals, I think it's important to know what our region spoke of as well. The second section, it talked about all disciples, all missionaries. And so the thing I'll focus on here is the church's mission. And I think when our church communities become locked into routines of compulsory worship attendance and the responsibilities associated with serving the church, in my experience, this can be really damaging for our young people who we so want to support in all of our practical things and action points in our strategies. What do I say? As Pacific peoples, from my perspective, we continue to recolonize ourselves when we frame the world, our church communities, and our families, in terms of a God who is controllable and containable, and who only gives instruction through bite-sized segments on a Sunday. So even when this is framed as a cultural and ethnic expression of faith, it doesn't really empower young people to discern their gifts or practice them. So I think that there needs to be greater recognition that the parish exists to support family life, not that families simply exist to support the parish structure. And so I think this whole idea of synodality and building a synodal church, or forming a synodal church, is a real step forward, we hope. And the synthesis document states that church is mission, which is not something that the Catholic Church has really heard as much as in Protestantism in the last century. And so North American theologian Neil Sloan, he points to the fact that Christian marriage has really been viewed as a religious state of life as such, where spouses are particularly recognized for their part in the mission. And this was a big theme that came through the synthesis document and from what I've read of your proposed strategy. So how do we form lay people and religious and our priests and deacons? How do we form them in a way that expresses church as mission? Don't have the answer for that. So the third section, weaving bonds and building communities. How are we going? You feeling alive? Yeah. So there's a notion of sacramentality. Most of you probably heard of that in some one way or another in your parishes or in your faith journey. But it's not readily understood as extending into family life. And so like I was saying, teaching and formation is a really crucial area. Like from a youth perspective, mitigating the fact, the feeling that they have that they need to put on a mask to attend church, just to save face for their families. So Thomas Aquinas, he talks about how the 7 sacraments parallel all aspects of human life, and thus, every tumultuous and joyous moment in life sort of runs in parallel, or it's aligned in life to the sacraments. Eucharist, our daily spiritual food for nourishment. Confirmation, our Christian maturity and strengthening. Vocations through marriage and holy orders. Reconciliation, forgiveness of sin. And anointing of the sick, of course, when we face a serious illness or about to die. And so these allow those present to experience God's grace and listening to the Spirit, more in tune with everyday life. And there's another theologian, his name is Bernard Cook. He talks about Christ instituting the sacraments not by forming specific religious rituals, but by his life, death, and resurrection. Jesus is the fundamental sacrament of God's saving presence in humanity, and he's transformed humanity. And so, my goodness, do we need formation in the sacraments, and what sacramentality, a way of being, synodality, means for everyday family life. And that section covered a lot of different themes, such as, towards a listening and accompanying church, the digital environment, and even a suggestion on making parish pastoral councils obligatory, which would be good in my parish because we don't have a parish council right now. So there was a letter, you probably can't read this on the screen, so I'll read it out. Letter from the participants of the assembly, this first assembly. They wrote a letter to the people of God, as well as releasing this report. And I wanted to include this up here. So they say that during the opening ecumenical vigil, we experienced how the thirst for unity increases in the silent contemplation of the crucified Christ. When homeless people near St. Peter's Square were asked about their expectations regarding the church on this occasion of the Synod, they replied, love. This love must always remain the ardent heart of the church, a Trinitarian and Eucharistic love. As the Pope recalled on October the 15th, midway through the assembly, invoking the message of St. Therese of the Child Jesus, he said, "It is trust that gives us the audacity and inner freedom that we experienced, not hesitating to freely and humbly express our convergences, differences, desires, and questions." So I wanted to put up Bishop Michael's coat of arms on there, because when I was looking up, I don't know anybody. I know Besamino in the Otago diocese. I don't know anybody else. I don't know much about the region. And, I think it's beautiful that what that statement said, it's actually a lot of it is in his coat of arms and what is unique to this particular region. So, of course, you can see there, trust in God. It's like they say, trust gives us the audacity and inner freedom in listening to each other. Got the Takitimu Mountains and Aparima River, which are in Southland, and the Blessed Sacrament up there. So this relational way of understanding God sees God as the origin of our ancestors from each of our cultures. And we're called to deep relationships with the entire cosmos, where the triune God is able to flow through each of these connections. God is one who is truly present in the Eucharist and present in the stars and the oceans our ancestors used to navigate the globe. It sees God as the love which binds together all the relationships in our families, who are so important to each of our lives, and propels us forward to serve them in our communities with vigor. So I'm looking at the time, and I'm aware that you need to finish very soon. So I want to wish you all the best with the rest of your synodal journey. And Pope Francis said that without prayer, there's no synod. So I'd like to give you a few short minutes reflecting if there was anything useful in that, what I said on this familiar icon of the Trinity, even though we've got beautiful artwork through the whole of this church. I'll give you a few minutes. And then does anybody, I'm not sure if you know this song, Step by Step. It's a bit of a banger in my parish. Oh God, you are my God. You know that song? Okay, so we'll sing that after I give you a few minutes.
I just stand on behalf of Bishop Michael Dooley and all our priesthood here today, and as well as our coordinators, to take this opportunity to say Whawhetai te le lava, Theresa. I'll come back to my second language, that's English, because I'll acknowledge Theresa in my own Samoan language. Yeah. Ia lea ua te alwhitu taimatangi, ia lea fwoi ua tātou whairoa I rumo nuu, ai roa tua nuu. Ia, ai roa leo whatau waa, le fio ngai e kopo ia mai kutuli, e whapea fwoi le mamaro e au whainga renga pa ia lea tua, ia mai te fwoi la tau o ka whamare, whati nonga nei, mahaftanga mātanga o fie. Mori te rea toi le ngā whawhtai Theresa, e whaawanoa ina mai o lo taimi, ia pērawa sā tāri ngā, ia leo tātou mafuta whawhtai, ia vi ia ilea lofa lea tua, au mātanga o fie fwoi nei aso, whawhtai mo whaawanoa ina lo taimi. Ia tai tono na manatu, la toi maua nisi aso whapea nei, ia e tau puneola lea lofa, lea anga lelei o lea tua, e soifua maua, ma le soifua manuia. I was just paraphrasing what I just said, as I mentioned in the beginning, behalf of Michael, our Bishop Michael, our priesthoods, and Father Jude, and all the organizers today, to say thank you to Theresa for making up her time. Even she struggled with the flight, but she's arrived here safely and be with us today. So on our way home, safe trip and safe travels. Hopefully we'll have another time like this back here in Dunedin. Whawhetai te. Thank you very much.